This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? Right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. We want to welcome you all in today. Glad to have you aboard as always. Listen, we're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. We'll be on Roku with a replay of the show at noontime today. Get those Roku devices downloaded, guys. If you've got a Roku TV, go look for Northeast Streaming Sports. If you got the Roku stick or whatever you want to call it, look for the Roku app and look for Northeast Streaming Sports app, and you'll not be disappointed. There's a lot of shows that you can catch there live, a lot of video on demand, and a lot of other things that you'll be able to make use of. Waiting to be joined today by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. He's not arrived in the studio yet, but it's going to be an interesting day if he does. Well, either way, hopefully he shows up. Hope everything's all right in his world. He insisted that we dive into the Deshaun Watson debate again this morning, as he says he's being unfairly treated compared to some others. Good morning, Alan. Good to have you. Good morning, Neil. Good to have you today. So we'll dive into that topic again. And I've got to tell you, I know you know, I hope you know, after whenever you watch this show, my vlogs, what side of this conversation I'll come up on. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA Finals last night with the Warriors soundly handling the Boston Celtics, and in my mind, becoming one of the great dynasties in the history of college NBA basketball. And then we'll look at the Yankees and Mets. Hopefully we'll get to all this. We'll look at the Yankees and Mets, two teams with the two best records in baseball. Too early to talk about a Subway Series, guys, but we can compare these two teams a little bit and see who wins out on the pitching side, the hitting side, the defensive side, the managerial side. Maybe look at some potential trade targets for both. Potential all-star candidates. We'll look at all of that. Before we get started and before I bring in, good morning, Al. Ray. Good to have you with us. Alan, I see. I was reading your name as well. Durant came up big in a clutch last night. Always get a Texas update from Alan in the morning. But good morning to Ray Golick. And listen, make sure you get to go to the TGI Sports Talk page, because I haven't done it yet. And Ray, I promised to do it today. Ray, you can put a post up here if you'd like to support your cause. We're going to play a shot for the Dream Ride experience here. But Ray is also very, very big in promoting the Wish Fest, here locally in the Mohawk County. Boy, I'm having trouble today. Where the hell's Mohawk County? Montgomery County, Amsterdam area. He's a big promoter of this event with St. Mary's Healthcare, and we certainly want to push that for Ray as well. So welcome in this morning, Ray, and I'll certainly put up a banner here if you want to put something in the notes real quick. And I will share it to TGI Sports Talk, so be sure to take a look at that. And I also, as I said, Northeast Streaming Sports is a huge sponsor of the Dream Ride experience, which, I've talked about many times. And just take a quick look at this quick 30-second video, and then we will be back with the Mad New Yorker and dive into what ought to be a really fun conversation this morning. Bye.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much more. Get your tickets today. So a great cause. Again, $18 million they've
they've had donated up until this point. Raised is the word I was looking for. That's a tough word to come up with. Ray, if you got something like that, we'll certainly promote it for Wish Fest. Without further ado, because I can see he's chomping at the bit back there. He's just like, I think he's foaming at the mouth this morning from what I can see here. Let me bring in the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing today? Morning, Keith.
How are you, Carlos?
Morning, Gary.
We got
He's good. Good. Happy Friday.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Carlos and I got going back and forth on this topic yesterday via text. And I guess we couldn't be more further apart. I can't seem to make my point. He can't seem to make his point. Of course, we both feel like we've made our points, but that's par for the course. So, and we'll dive right into that, I think, very quickly here. We all know Deshaun Watson's story. Talked about it till I'm ready to barf all over my desk. More allegations come out. Detectives in Houston have talked about how they testified that it was criminal activity that he was involved in, but it was ignored by the grand jury. But we still have, I believe, the running count is now 26 civil suits outstanding against him, and rumors of an unprecedented suspension on the way by the NFL. Now, certain corners of the sports world, including the NFL Players Association, getting some feedback somewhere, including the NFL Players Association and folks like Carlos feel that Deshaun Watson is not being treated fairly when you compare him to some other people. And I say it's not apples to apples. Carlos disagrees with me. And I'll bring up a couple of the cases before you jump in, Carlos. You compared it to Bob Kraft, Daniel Snyder, and I saw Jerry Jones. I don't think you brought Jerry Jones up, but Jerry Jones has been mentioned by the Players Association. We'll get to some other topic people that you mentioned as far as not good people in sports. Maybe we'll get into that as well. But if you just take these things at face value, Deshaun Watson is accused of sexually assaulting women. 26 cases. Criminal charges, grand jury dropped the charge. Did not drop charges, did not bring charges, right? He was not indicted. Doesn't mean he won't be, by the way.
Right.
Bob Kraft, look at not a good situation, paying for sex in a massage parlor. No sexual assault of any kind ever brought up. Daniel Snyder, very ugly situation, not a good person, not going to defend what has happened. He has not, and even in those charges, he is charged with having or promoting a toxic environment with rampant with sexual harassment, not physical abuse, and none personally by Daniel Snyder even. And Jerry Jones is even more out there. No other player association brings it in. It's about an employee in voyeuristic activities, watching other people do whatever they do. I don't see how these things all correlate. Why Watson wouldn't be treated differently than these people. So anyway, let's start. You can jump in now because I've talked for a long time.
Right. So if you just compare the Rob Kraft situation, and we talk about lewd acts, because that's what Watson's getting accused for, is lewd acts while getting a massage, and
which he paid for.
Who, Watson or Robert Kraft?
I thought I heard you say Kraft.
Yeah, no, Robert Kraft. Yeah, he did pay for it, so that makes it okay. He paid for it, and it's illegal in Florida.
I mean, I understand that.
and on top of that, the spas that he went to, not just alone, but with his friends. So he took other people, knowing that this is a place that you can get a full service. He didn't maybe not know that some of these people were involved in trafficking women from Southeast Asia or Asian descent. But he was there and he partook in the situation that was illegal to begin with, even though he paid for it. Just because he paid for something doesn't make it okay. First of all. Second of all, these places, he might not have known that these places were trafficking Southeast Asian women, but he knew enough that he get full service there, and he took other people, right? And the video all the video that could incriminate him was insubmissible because because they received it illegally. So he got off a loophole, in our justice system. All right. So if that loophole wasn't there, he'd be sitting in a bad situation. But because he can't get incriminated without these videos, then he got let go. Now,
how many of those women
if you flip the story, if you look at the story, somebody had to get arrested. So they went ahead and arrested these women who got paid, right, from this man for solicitation, right? Because they had to get somebody. So if you look at the whole situation, as well as the man who owned the massage parlor in Florida, they got in trouble as well. So
that's a different situation.
No, but what I'm saying is that somebody had to get in trouble. Because those locations were under investigation for trafficking women. So yeah, Robert Kraft, he might have paid for a full service, but at the end of the day, he did something that wasn't right.
How many? I don't disagree. First of all, we'll agree there. Robert Kraft did something wrong. Daniel Snyder has, not stopped the toxic work environment.
Right.
None of those women in that massage parlor claimed Robert Kraft sexually assaulted them. Am I right or wrong?
Okay, so you're talking about women who are being mistreated and who are trafficked. And even if somebody somewhere took payment, it doesn't mean that those women got paid. And we don't know that situation. And you don't know that situation. So, and most situations, Keith, when there's women involved and they're trafficked, the money usually doesn't touch their hands. I mean, that's just a plain fact.
Yeah. And the woman that he was involved with in this was not an employee necessarily, but one of the people who would have been doing the drug trafficking. She was one of the people involved in the whole operation. So I'm sure she got her money, and I'm sure that she was certainly.
You don't look. It's not about where the money goes and what transaction happens. It's the fact that what Robert Kraft did was wrong, and because there's no video evidence to prove that, because it's insubmissible, and the judge had the videos to be destroyed, it means that he got off in a loophole. So now if we switch it over to what happened in Watson's case, the Texans knew of the 60 situations that he was getting a massage. There's 22 women that have their claims. Yeah. From most of the women that were interviewed and the situation, some of them knew that what they were getting into. They have cell phone records, and some of these women knew that they were taking advantage of the situation and agreed to doing what Watson asked them up to do. Not all of the women, but some of the women. So in that case, those women, the grand jury saw those women as people that try and take advantage of an athlete and his money, and that's why they didn't agree to have him put up. The grand jury let the situation go. Now, it doesn't mean that he's in the right. He still did something wrong. But if Robert Kraft, if he's an owner and you let him slide, then a player does something similar. And where are we gonna put the mallet down and say, listen, you both did something wrong. You both deserve consequences.
Well, here's my problem: is you're thinking all wrongs are of the same degree, and they're not. They're just not. I mean, Robert Kraft did something wrong. I'm not saying he didn't.
Right.
But what Deshaun Watson is accused of doing is far worse. And by the way, charges were dropped against Robert Kraft, just as an FYI.
The charges were dropped because the videos were insubmissible. That's why they were dropped.
By the way, that's not a loophole. That's a basic premise of law in this country. Is that
it is a basic premise, but it's also known as a loophole for lawyers so they can get their clients off, especially in solicitation.
Parts of the law are not necessarily loopholes. I mean, again,
you could call. Okay, look, we could call it. You could call it whatever you want, but okay, fine. It's part of the law.
I am not absolving Robert Kraft of anything. I'm really not. You know that I'm not. I hope you know I'm not. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying what Deshaun Watson is accused of is far worse than anything you can compare it with these other guys.
Look. Do you know how many women were with Robert Kraft? Robert Kraft. Do you know how many he was? One. That's the woman who set it up. That's all that comes out in the story. He went into multiple spas, not just once, and he took people with him. So there could have been 22 cases of this situation happening, but because he paid for it, it makes it all right. That's what you're saying to me.
No, I'm not.
That's what you're saying to everybody.
No, I have not said once that it was all right.
But that's what you're implying. That's what you're implying, Keith. This is what I'm getting at the whole thing. I'm not defending Deshaun Watson, and I'm not going to defend him. What I'm saying is that the situation should have been treated fairly for both guys. And if these men were not guarded by the NFL Shield and the NFLPA and anything else that has to do with a $1 billion company, these two men should get the consequences like any other man who goes out and looks for a person of whatever to do with, and consensual matter or not, and the situation should take care of itself the way it should. You're doing things that are wrong.
But again,
and that's and especially with this Me Too movement that's going on now, they both should have got the hammer.
Deshaun Watson's wrong is much worse than Robert Kraft.
A wrong is a wrong. You can't rate them.
That's wrong. That's wrong. Do you think soliciting a prostitute is the same as murdering two people?
It's illegal. It was illegal. It's illegal in the state of Florida.
I understand illegal is illegal. I get it. But you're telling me that every illegal act is equal in the eyes of the law. Murder is the same as prostitution.
Until a judge comes in and tells you, hey, this is your consequence for that wrong activity or the wrong thing that you did.
I got a point. Is drug trafficking the same as
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In that situation, right, you're looked at as somebody who is on the same level until the court tells you this is what your consequence is.
Let me ask you a basic question. Woman's getting paid to have sex with you. So it starts as a massage, but the agreement we know is it's going to go farther because that's what I paid you for. And the woman finally says, that's enough. No more. What should happen then? He should stop. I don't care if he paid for it. He didn't. You stop.
Again, any man in the right mind who's going to flip money and want to pay a woman for anything, for solicitation, they think that they have a right to do whatever they want because they're paying for it. Just like any fan that pays a ticket thinks that they can scream or throw bottles on the field because they're paying for it.
Right, that's wrong.
So we could just throw all that out and just let it be as it may. Look, if you're doing something wrong and you get caught, there should be a consequence. Period.
Well, again, it is about the integrity of the league. That's what it's coming down to. And again, I don't disagree that something should have happened at the time, possibly to Robert Kraft. Should he be suspended? I'm calling for Deshaun Watson to be suspended forever.
Look, the NFL has a lot of issues right now with not just players, but the ownership of some of these teams and what's going on. And, I'm not sure what happened yesterday with Robert Goodell in Congress, but I'm
sure that went well.
He's got a lot of mess to mop up, and this whole thing with the player going the way it's going, it doesn't look good for the league. It doesn't look good for the sport, and it doesn't look good for players as well, like who are associated with him and who will play with him, right? So this is a situation though that somebody somewhere has to be a consequence. If not, then you're just letting future players, future owners allowing them to keep doing what they want to do, and that's where the problem is.
No, and look, it's not like nothing's going to happen to Daniel Snyder. That's still an open investigation. They're trying to force him to sell the team. They are trying to do something.
They've been trying to get Daniel Snyder out of the picture for the last 5 years, and
I'm certainly not going to compare his other charges.
No. Listen,
there's more there. He's also been charged of bilking the other the league out of millions of dollars. And if you really think it's as bad bilking other billionaires out of millions of dollars as it is sexually assaulting women, I'm never going to go there ever.
Right. Look, at the end of the day, people have been taken advantage of, and there's no consequences, and that's what's wrong. And that's not just wrong with the NFL. That's wrong in society, and that's wrong with what our laws have to try to protect us, and our women and just all people in general. And this needs to stop. And somebody needs to stand up. And if Congress is investigating Goodell, fine. But this has to go further than just investigating a person. There has to be a consequence. Or not, we can do whatever we want, Keith. If I give you $100, I could just punch you in the face because it's okay. You're taking my $100. Right.
Don't punch me in the face because that won't make me happy.
But you get what I'm saying? If I give you money, there's a transaction. It's okay.
Oh, if I say
that's not how things work.
Well, if I pay you to punch me in the face, well, then I will, first of all, I'm stupid. And second of all, I'll take my beating. But
okay, so I meet up with you, right?
Yeah.
And I gave you $100, and then I take a baseball bat and smash you inside the face, and you call it assault. I'll be like, no, I gave the guy $100.
Well, if I gave you $100 to punch me in the face and then you bash my head in, I would say you probably took it too far and I got a case. But
well, who's there to stop you? If you give me money for me to hit you in the face and I hit you in the face, look, people take things too
you guys all walked into a storm this morning. Listen. You just, but in a way, you contradict yourself. You tell me that the problem, and I agree, we have a problem in society with entitlement, depending on what position you are in life, right? NFL players think they can do whatever they want. We've talked about this forever, and there's no consequences. Well, and I understand your point of saying, well, if the owners do something wrong, there doesn't seem to be a penalty. Well, there is at times, for sure, but not every time. But if you're going to tell me the Players Association is going to try to defend this miserable excuse for a human being, all they're doing is enabling the entitlement that these players think that they have. That's my point. How do you defend this guy? I mean, I don't feel sitting here defending Robert Kraft and Daniel Snyder, to be honest with you. But when you're going to compare him to Deshaun Watson, I feel I have to compare the situations, not the people.
Right. Yeah, of course. And you're right about that. It's all situational, but you have to protect Deshaun Watson because that's part of his contract. He's part of the union. And anything that happens, the union is responsible for helping these players get lawyers.
Well, again, I get that that's their deal. But at some point, I would say, you know what? You don't belong to our organization anymore. You're a common criminal and a despicable piece of crap. I mean,
there's players that have been kicked out of the league for sure, but like it's not as common as you would think it is with some of the activity that's happened.
How many times did Antonio Brown get to come back after his travails? Every single time he's been allowed to come back. The line needs to get drawn. Now, Justin Deshaun Watson,
are you saying that because you don't like Antonio Brown, or are you saying that because that's one of the examples?
He's a great player, and he's a waste of a talent because he's not he's a horrible human being.
Look, I think
the facts are there.
I think it'll go against the NFL to kick him out because it's known that he has issues that surpass, that can be talked about.
Put him in a mental institution and fix him.
So I mean, but they give players an opportunity, and more than one, to try to help them, right? So
I understand mental health is a big issue everywhere in the world today, especially in the world of sports because the spotlight's on it, and you can't ignore it. And if he's got which he obviously has some kind of mental issues going on, if he continues to be a serial abuser of women, then go get him out of the league because he doesn't belong in the league, number one, and get him help. That's fine. But he doesn't belong in the NFL.
Listen, right now he's not playing, so you can be okay with that. But
that's because there's going on. That's the only reason he's not playing.
With the movement, with the Me Too movement that's happened in the last few years, with the fact that there's a lot more to work with for women to help them, with the amount of help that's going out to try to find these people who are sex trafficking. There's always wrong in this world. I'm not going to say that we can just stop it by
evil's real.
Yeah, evil's real, right? We can't just stop it with just with a hammer, right? With the mallet. That's not the way it's going to work, but it has to start somewhere, man. It has to start somewhere, and it's not fair.
Yeah,
it's not fair.
Let's just
one person gets privilege and the other doesn't because of their race, because of where they stand in social economics, or because of the amount of people who support them, right? It's not, and that's where the issue is. And both men and the NFL, with these teams, they need to have consequences. And that's where I'm saying.
Well, Alan's completely right. And again, this is what I've talked about. The NFL is way too inconsistent in their punishments, and it does go to the owners too. I'm not going to say that. All I'm talking about though is the level of transgressions are not equal here.
We don't know. Look, if you were in that room with Robert Kraft at the Orchard Spa in Florida, and you saw what happened, fine, I'll let you have that. But if you were not in that room, then you don't know. right?
I know she hasn't accused him of anything other than paying her money for sex, which she took.
But that's one person. Again, Keith, he went to multiple spas with an entourage and multiple dates. So you're looking at one situation, one day, or when it happened.
I agree with Ray here. This isn't a matter of race, and this is a matter of.
I'm not trying, and Ray, I'm not trying to make it a matter of race. I'm making it a matter of that if we're talking about justice, these two men are both in the wrong, and these two men need to be the consequences needs to begin.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with it. Both of them are in the wrong. They're just not equally as wrong because the level of transgression.
But we don't know. But the problem is that we don't know what's going on with the Watson deal. With what women are okay with. That were okay with him taking advantage of them.
I know
there was consent, right? We don't know. We just have on paper of women that are saying things, and then we have on paper of these interviews, and then we have the grand jury saying some of these women were okay with it, or as far as what Watson was doing with them, because they were texting about it, and they were taking some money from him, right? And then we have another story, and then we have on the other side that the Texans knew of 60 situations where they let him have massages in different hotel rooms, right? But we don't. At the end of the day, we don't know what's going on. But
the Texans have been added to some of these civil suits as well. By the way,
they should.
We do
because
know
they were responsible for vetting these women and allowing Deshaun Watson to even do this to a certain extent.
Let me
even
tell
though
you,
it's not the Texans' responsibility. I understood you on that when we talked about that last time.
Right. You talked about what we know and what we don't know. We do know that almost 40% of the women that he met for massages with a happy ending have said he sexually abused them. 26 women, have filed civil suits. Not one person has filed any kind of suit against Robert Kraft saying he was physically assaulting them.
Because they're already either paying the consequence or they're women who've been sex trafficked who are treated like nothing, which is what the issue is with sex trafficking, this is why it's a big deal. Plus the investigators, they blew a lot of money in Florida for blowing this deal anyways, because Robert Kraft was involved with his entourage. That's the problem. Yeah, they had to blame somebody, and they ended up blaming the women some of the women that worked there and the owner, and they gave them their consequence.
Yeah, Ray's pretty much saying the same. We do know that there's a difference in the transgressions, and that I don't know why I can't get you to just admit that small.
Because we don't actually know we know that Robert Kraft went to these massage parlors. We know that. We see it on video. What we don't know is what took place, and can't compare those to Watson, and we shouldn't because of the two different situations. But we can't say that Robert Kraft was nicer to women because he paid for them than Watson, because Watson just was looking for massage and got and was asking for full service.
I do know
all you can say, and the one thing that is correct and the matter is that they're both wrong for doing what they're doing, and they both should receive consequences. And that's what I'm trying to make you understand. I'm not comparing the two incidents. I'm telling you that they're both wrong and they need consequences.
Not equal consequences. Not equal. That Deshaun Watson should be banned for life for what he's done.
Okay, now you're trying to be the judge, and that's not that's not for you or for me to say. You can't be the judge in this situation because you don't know what happened in these situations. What we do know, from what we do know as media people, as people and fans, and what we read in the paper, is a quarter of what the real situation is.
What do you think I get the big bucks here for? I judge people. That's why I get all this money for doing this show.
No, we just give our opinions. That's it. We're not here to throw people in jail.
Robert Kraft should have got some kind of penalty. Daniel Snyder's going to end up with a huge penalty.
Okay. And I've been saying this on not just your show, but even with Tiki and Tierney and a lot of these ESPN, and even when I've gone on there, I was like, listen, these owners need to go, and they need to be, and if they don't go, then it makes it worse for the NFL, right? What happened with the LA Gronky, with the LA owner dipping on St. Louis contract, then all the teams have to put in to pay for that St. Louis situation, and then he turns around and says, well, I got extra money, I'm going to sign more players, and then he gets a championship out of that. You better bet that all the other owners are upset at that situation. Second,
again,
what happened in Houston with Deshaun Watson, as soon as he wanted to bail on that contract, all of a sudden he's known to have all these situations happen because they're trying to throw him under the bus.
When it comes to
They didn't want him to leave.
billionaires, I'm not going to get myself all on an uproar.
And then the Dolphins situation with them trying to get Brady on to come in against his contract.
He was retired. They were going to have to, if they did something, they would have had to make some kind of compensation. They know that. So
yeah, but then they try to pay out the coach to lose games to get a draft pick. Come on,
that's different. That's not
That's part of the situation. That's included in that situation because they
everything with a whole bunch of different types of situations. When we were just talking about Deshaun Watson and compared these awful.
I'm just saying that these owners have had a lot of issues. Robert Goodell needs to clean up. If not, he needs to go.
And I got to take this conversation one step further based on what we were talking about yesterday, because as we had this conversation, you kept going a little further and you said, these players think they can do whatever you want. And then you brought up guys like Julius Erving, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, who, by the way, I cannot still put them in the same bucket as Deshaun Watson because he physically assaulted women. These guys might have had sexual relationships outside of their marriage and kids out of wedlock and whatever else. And that's not right. And by the way, you're lumping Tom Brady even with them was wrong, by the way, because it's not even close to the same situation.
Well, he had a child out of wedlock.
But with a woman he was involved in a relationship with. He still
had a child out of wedlock. So if you put it in that context.
If you want to just bring it up in the eyes of some,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
It's not the eyes of people who are religious. If you look at the context and you look at the definition, he had a child out of wedlock.
Yeah, with a woman he was involved with.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Julius Erving was in a long-time marriage and had a baby with a woman he was having an affair with. That's totally different than the Tom Brady situation. That's my point.
Oh, no. Again, we can't compare. We're not comparing what these guys did. What we're comparing is the fact that they did it and they didn't, and they have to handle that situation. That's what we're saying.
All of those things, by the way, don't have anything to do with Deshaun Watson because this is a total.
Like Keith, we don't. As far as what the case brings up, as far as the information that we don't know if he's having any relationship with any of those women.
No one cared. LA won a title. No one cared. Alan said it's good. That's kind of a good point. I know Mark Mancini didn't, but
some of these kids that were born out of wedlock, we don't know if that was forced. We don't know that. We don't know that. We just know that these guys had fun.
I know Tom Brady's story very well, and I know that his, it's all on the up and up. He's been in his son's life the entire time. And
listen. If you know, fine. If you let's say you're the kid's godfather, fine, good for you. But at the end of the day, if you asked anybody who has nothing to do with the NFL and said, and you'd explain that situation, the answer is he had a kid out of wedlock.
I will say one more time, with Deshaun Watson will never play another down in the NFL.
I mean, I don't. Again, there's no telling what's going to happen because this is just a mess, man.
Again, this is a mess. Based on what I know the rumors are they're going to make a unprecedented suspension out of this. Now, maybe that only means a year, but I think it will mean a much, much longer.
And then they got an owner who's got away with stuff, and that's okay. You see, that's where
should he be banned for life? I don't think so. I don't think so,
because we don't know how many women and we don't know how many people in his entourage were doing whatever and how many different spas.
I understand.
And just because he paid for it, it's okay.
We're at an impasse on this for now. Well, I'm sure this will come up again on our show. So let's move on to the Warriors real quick before we move on to the Warriors win last night. Ray Golick, we talked about the Wish Fest tonight. Sorry to segue from what we were talking about to the Wish Fest, right? But check out the website that Ray's put up here. And again, I'll put it on the TGI Sports Talk page and my personal page so that you guys can see it. So let's talk about last night's NBA Finals. I think the Celtics had not lost a game, lost a series on their own floor since like 1987, 85, one of those numbers I saw last night coming up. I don't know that anybody thought that the Warriors were going to win this series, number one, or win it last night in Game 6 for sure. In my mind, this Warrior team, there's 3 core guys left from the last run of championships, which is a little ways to go because of injuries to Klay Thompson and some other issues. But to me, Steph Curry has Game 3. Was it Game 3? Game 4, where they could have gone down 3-1. in Boston was one of the great games I've seen anybody play and carry a team on his back. And he deserved the MVP just for that game 4. This Warrior team played some great team basketball. Guys like we didn't expect to step up, like Wiggins, Poole. It wasn't a one-man show. It was in game 4 when they needed Steph Curry. He showed why he's the guy. And the rest of them, and Klay Thompson coming back was certainly important.
Yeah. So we have to respect that and acknowledge that Curry is one of the best players in this time. Prolific shooter. I've seen a couple play on the court like Ray Allen and even Stevanovic before he passed for the Nets. He was a good shooter. What can you say about what he's done for the game, especially
he's going to be the best outside player in the history of basketball, I got to say.
I mean, we'll give him a couple more years to see what else he can do, right? And the stats are just all in his favor right now. Everything, 3-point shooting, accuracy, it's the percentage of shots that he takes, all the numbers. And what we witnessed, some the Boston fans will complain about because there was a team that could have competed with them, but he did what he did. And that's what stars do, right? That's why you pay them. And it wasn't just these games. He carried this team throughout the whole last 2 seasons. And even last season,
good point.
They were hurting. He was still the one trying to, will games. And that's what you want to see out of the people that you pay, your all-stars. And I don't think he gets enough credit and enough money from his team to –
I don't either.
For what he's done, but – everybody acknowledges what kind of player he is, and marketing wise, branding wise, he's getting money. He's getting a lot more money on the back end, just like LeBron. But hey, that's a deserving good win for Curry MVP as well as the Warriors as a team to go through what they did last year, come from one of the worst teams to being the best team, right?
Yeah, and Klay Thompson coming back helps that, obviously. Because
and look, I'm not going to take anything away from what happened with Klay Thompson and how long he's been out and all those injuries. He played maybe at an 80%, so it's going to be scary to see him next year maybe if he gets a good rest to come back because what we are seeing more of some of these shooters in a lot of these teams is not just accuracy, but the percentage of the shots that they're making, right? But I feel like they're still depending too much on shooting beyond the arc. Even Tatum in this game, Brown, Smart, like they could have attacked the basket a little bit more because they're faster, and just try to get on the foul line if possible. But you see Draymond made a couple threes too last night, yeah. So. He's a center, and he wasn't playing on the inside. So,
Alan's got a good point about Steph. He's also picked up his look. He's never going to be confused with Clyde Frazier, but he's picked up his defense tremendously. And would I put Curry in the top 10 of all time?
Oof.
That's a great question, Alan. But without seeing names in front of me right now, he'd certainly be on the cusp of that number if he isn't in it already. And you know what? That's a good topic. We'll look into it. I don't want to just throw it out there, a yes or a no without looking at some names because you can't put them in without dropping people out, right? Top 10s. It's funny how people say he belongs in the top 10, but then they'll give me 20 people that belong in the top 10.
Yeah, what I hate about those discussions is that the NBA has been a transcendent game since the beginning. And some of these points that these people have put up lately, with the amount of changes going on, it's more of it's a faster game. There's less defense played. There's more shooting beyond the arc. So it's hard to say that that's the best player in the top 10 of all time. However,
I can't put him ahead of LeBron, though, Alan. I can't do that.
However, how many championships does he have now? 4?
4. That's good. Some Michael Jordan territory.
Just about right.
6 he's got.
I mean, his shooting, his style of play in this shooting is, I haven't seen anybody like I said. Ray Allen maybe is one person I saw play where he could just shoot and it was accurate. But Ray Allen also he shot less than Curry does. and he shot more on pick and roll than Curry. He just creates his own shots.
And Ray Allen wasn't the main guy on those teams. Well, maybe in Seattle he was the main guy, but not when he got to the Celtics. The Heat, he wasn't. He wasn't the main guy.
And the Bucks, he helped carry those teams to a playoff. Yeah.
I'm thinking about the teams that won, right? The Heat.
I mean, that's not, again, when you take away from a player, because he was on a bad team. I mean, he was on a decent team and helped them get to the playoffs with the Bucks.
Don't get me wrong. Ray Allen's a great player, great shooter.
Great, yeah. But if we're talking about shooters, Chris Mullin, Reggie Miller, he's on top because of, again, and these are players that played in different eras of the game. But he's doing what we haven't seen as a player that creates his own shot, not just you give him the ball and he shoots it, right? So maybe among shooters, he's one of the top, but I don't say the top player.
He can create his own shot because there's no range for this guy. He just gets the ball. He can fire it up from 20 feet or 60 feet. The guy's amazing.
I know. It's ridiculous. What this is like? He's almost at like 60% shooting, right? From the amounts that he takes total. That's crazy.
Yeah. And this team, even though Thompson's there and came back, as you said, at less than 100%. Draymond Green's still an important cog there, but he's not the player he was when they were winning 3 out.
No, that's evident too. That was evident during the playoffs.
Yeah, Curry had to carry this team much more than he had to carry those other teams, in my mind. Now they picked him up after he had that great game 4. He didn't have a good game 5, and the rest of the team picked him up, which championship teams do. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep this team together. Draymond Green's almost moved on a couple of times here in the last few years.
Yeah, he was involved in a few trade talks since before the bubble.
So, and you've got guys now that have kind of had breakout seasons. Wiggins came out of nowhere here in these playoffs. He was a former either first or second choice in the draft who never really found his potential until these playoffs, really. Right. A great cog on this team. Poole and Kerr. We talked a little bit about Kerr, about, he strikes me as a guy now. He may step away for a break. I don't know. I just have this feeling about Steve Kerr stepping away. I don't know.
I mean, he can, but it's up to him. I mean, again, I think he'll be better as a GM myself, because he's been able to pick up some of these guys through, of course, with the help of the scouting, pick up some of these guys. Look, the Wiggins thing, I think, is he's deserving of being on a team like this to help win. He got a bad rap, but he was on a terrible team with terrible coaching.
Because he's not the kind of guy who's going to go carry a team on his back.
And you could tell, like, when he's on the court, how when he's focused and what his basketball mind is. Yeah. And I feel like, and I don't want to say this and make it sound bad, but he's a team player more than he is a me player. And you could tell by how he plays the game. So you made him a number 1 draft pick, and you try to change his basketball mind and mentality to be a me player. And you could just tell by the kind of person he is that he's not like that. He shares the ball, he moves the ball, he knows basketball, and now he's in a better situation with Kerr. Yeah. Right, to help his skills come out. And that was evident too. So you got to give props to the coaching staff to help Wiggins come back and be the player that he should be, instead of being a player that you want him to be. And I think that's one of the biggest issues the NBA has right now with coaching, development, and even players. Sometimes players, they think they're me players and they're actually team players, and that it's evident when you get in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and again, I mentioned Kerr. This is what great coaches do. Great coaches put players in position to succeed, right? And that's what he's done with Wiggins. And it's fun to see that type of evolution out of a player who struggled for a long time, and now he's in the right.
He's in the right place, right?
Yeah. So I put in here jokingly, well, they have to change their name because this week the George Washington Colonials have decided to change their nickname from the Colonials, because obviously that's. I had to laugh. Apparently, the Colonials is offending somebody. We're offended by so many things. So I see names like the Warriors, and I wonder, not that I find it offensive myself, but many teams named the Warriors have changed their nicknames already. So I hope they don't go down that road. I just kind of threw that in as an aside. Let's jump over to the Yankees and the Mets. We probably don't have as much time as I would like to spend here, so we'll probably spend some more time next week on this. right now, and maybe we'll concentrate on the who's better department. These are the teams with the two best records in baseball right now. Right. And they've got their different ways. The Mets don't hit home runs the way the Yankees do, obviously.
No.
They score runs for pitching. Starting pitching hasn't been as good. What I will say is that, their situational baseball is exceptional. So let's talk about the different aspects of these two teams and kind of compare them. We start with the pitching and the starting pitching. I got to give the edge to the Yankees only because the two top players for the Mets have been out for either most of the year or all of the year, and DeGrom and Scherzer, and the Yankee starters have been phenomenal. Cole's been phenomenal except for a couple of starts. Taillon has been really, really good, especially the last 6 weeks. We all know the Luis Severino story. We know the Nasty Nestor story. The Yankees have got one of the best starting staffs in baseball, and I got to give them the edge with the starting pitching. Although the Mets have gotten good starting pitching, from McGill before he got hurt, and Taijuan Walker's pitched okay. Bassett's been a godsend as a acquisition over the winter there, especially with their two aces going down. Any thoughts on the starting pitching on these two teams?
I think it's better to compare these teams in their leagues for American League and National League, and what teams can compete with them. Because if you compare the two, like let's look at it like the pitching staff wise, they both have had injuries, some season injuries for the Yankees. They lose a couple players.
Well, for the sake of this conversation, I want to compare the two because people are going to start talking Subway Series tomorrow. It's a little early for that, obviously.
Yeah, so I think there's
a regular season series here soon. So let's.
I think the staff, both of the staffs, are almost on par with each other. But from what I was reading in the stats, I believe the Mets have more strikeouts and more outs as far as like getting people out. And the Yankees have, and the Yankees pitchers, like they've had problems, but then they've had better hitting to back that to get them out of it.
They haven't had that. I mean, Cole had a couple of bad starts.
Right.
Brown was not going very long into games early on, but Nestor's been good since the beginning. He's only had a couple of bad starts.
Well, most of the issues stem from, and most of the stats are from the first 10 games that the Yankees were trying to find that get a better rotation going. And then get their hitting going. Players like Gallo and Hicks in and out of the lineup.
Well, we'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah, putting them out. But, I mean.
Well, I give the edge to the Yankees in starting pitching right now.
Well, they have been the constant, right, in pitching. I give credit to the Mets because they're taking some of these young pitchers like Peterson. They've tried out some of the guys that they've had in AAA, but I think they should have done more of that. I guess they didn't want to lose that many games, but they could have gotten some other guys out there. I feel like to see where they were standing pitching wise in their 40-man rotation and also in their AAA teams.
Yeah,
I wanted to see Bodo out there. One of the guys that the Mets got from the trade.
You might see him for the years though.
Yeah, but then we're gonna get a young, tired arm, But they had some players come up, and that Reed Foley injury did not help because that middle rotation was keeping them in the games, in the beginning. But Peterson's done a great job, and when McGill came out, and Taijuan Walker, thankfully he started pitching better. He had a couple games there that he was looked like he was either not focused or maybe he needed a little bit more time in spring training, so give credit to both of these bullpens for being able to do what they've done without the amount of spring training that they could have had for sure.
Let's jump quickly to the bullpens of these two teams. The Yankees has been a little bit different than we would have thought with right now Michael King and Clay Holmes will be the closer in my mind once Chapman comes back. They've had some injuries to Loaizaga, Chad Green out for the year, Chapman hurt or at least on the table is trying to get himself straightened out. I think the Yankee relief pitching has still been lights out, even without their key guys. Those three guys would have been looked at as the three key guys in this bullpen. And the other guys have stepped up very, very well. And the Mets have gotten, Diaz, for all that he gets bashed, has had a pretty good first half of the season. But I still think the Yankee bullpen has an edge over the Mets in this so far, 60 games into the season.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think they're both almost fair. I feel like, and this is just me, I feel like Gleyber Torres is somebody that they can trade and solidify that closing situation. But if they want to, look, this is the Yankees, so if they want to just use the guys they have and they're paying, or they're kind of paying because they're coming up from AAA, then fine. I mean, I'm okay with that as well, as long as they get wins, right? Because it's about getting wins. But
Clay Holmes has been lights out since.
Yeah, but
I think he's the real deal. He's added a pitch to his repertoire that has been unhittable, and his numbers are just out of this world good. I mean, his earned run average is 0.29.
I know. I was like, Clay Holmes is. I mean, when they get Chapman back, they're going to put him on the back burner.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so. I think this is Holmes' job.
No, I'm talking about Chapman.
Oh, Chapman. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be
I think it's a better move because Chapman is not consistent.
And if it wasn't for the contract, he'd be a candidate to get traded out of here.
I think. Well, he's been rumored to be on the trade block as well. So.
And the problem with moving him or Gallo or Hicks is they got to eat so much of their money to move them. It's going to be very, very difficult.
If you get something back for them in value as far as a draft or even some players from the minors, and I guess you'll be all right.
Yeah. Let's look again before we run out of time here. Let's look at the offenses now. These are both productive offenses. The Mets haven't lit it up either batting average wise or home run wise like the Yankees have, right? And got some gaudy numbers like Aaron Judge. Well, Alfonso's got some gaudy numbers. I shouldn't say he doesn't. Lindor's starting to play better, but they play better situational base offense, I think, than the Yankees do. Yankees win and lose by the long ball, and it's always going to be the case. But when you look at the overall production of these two offenses, I'm going to call it a toss-up only because the Mets find a way to get it done, and that's all that matters, right? Their situational hitting outweighs the fact that they don't have that other big bat, which I think is something they need to go look for at the trading deadline is another big bat.
Yeah, so like when you watch the Yankees play and all of a sudden it's like 2-1 and then it's just 4-1 and then maybe they win 6-3 or something like that. You like once they get those 2-3 runs going, it's the other team doesn't have a chance to come back.
Good point.
Because the pitching staff is actually helping them this year, opposed to last year with Kluber and all those guys. So that they have that in their favor, the pitching staff to get that support. With the Mets, it seems like when they go down, they're scrappy enough to come back up.
Last night's a great example of their scrappiness and coming back and winning that game.
And I think it's because as a team, they know that they lack a pitcher to take them the 6 to 7 innings, right? So that mentality of like, hey, we're not out of this. Let's just try to get some runs going, play small ball, hit the ball. The thing that the Mets have that the Yankees don't have is that they have 3 or 4 guys that can hit the ball against the shift, right? So they have good actual hitters. You have Nimmo, McNeil, Guillerme, and
he's been a great player.
And even Escobar has been getting a few hits. Now the power hitters, or I don't even know if you want to put Lindor there, but I don't know why people do, but I don't feel like Lindor is a power hitter.
No, he might hit some home runs, but he's not
right. That was like one of his, he hits for power or whatever. He's been inconsistent, but when he does get hits, it's been helpful, right? It's been clutch. So we haven't got too much. The Mets haven't got too much hitting from the catchers, but not many teams do. And
but again, you don't necessarily need offense out of every part of your. I think the one place the Mets can improve is at catching because they need better defense and hitting. If you got defense, you can carry that bat if you got enough other bats in the lineup.
Well, I mean, they get great defense from and and a lot of pitchers are comfortable with Nito. So McCann is out right now because he's recovering from that surgery on his finger and wrist. He doesn't have his bat is not consistent, McCann. So and either Nito's not a great hitter, but lately he's been hitting, so that's been helping them. And the Mets they get together runs, and the game's a little bit different for them. They play small ball. The Bucks, they're helping them out a little bit, strategizing. Yesterday, they were missing the player off the bench. Escobar was scratched. A lot of people don't know why, but they won the game against the Brewers, so that's good because they didn't go. The Brewers beat them the night before that, and so they're going to be both teams are going to be okay.
Yeah,
but the Mets are going to have a bigger challenge in the NL than the Yankees will in the American League,
which is where the biggest check mark I give the Mets, and you won't be surprised when I say this, is in the dugout. The manager, I give a big X to Buck over Boone. Always have. Boone's done a good job this year, don't get me wrong, but all those home runs and all the runs we're scoring and great pitching makes you look like a genius. Buck has had to, as you just alluded to, Buck's had to do it more with smoke and mirrors than Aaron Boone has, and that will bode well for the Mets as this right race. As well, the Mets have played, that East has tightened up with the Phillies getting hot and the Braves getting starting to play better baseball. They're going to need that leadership that Buck gives them, and I think he is a better under those circumstances. The Yankees may never get pushed. I don't know, unless the Blue Jays really take off. Yankees just may never get pushed this entire regular season. It's possible.
Yeah, I feel like the Mets will be okay with the team that they have because they play for each other. There have been some situations they played out of that Buck put them in a few times, but they as a team they have stepped up and played for each other, and I feel like they have enough talent that they can actually stay how they are. If they add any more hitting, I feel like a player like JD Martinez or anybody in that level will kind of take away from what they have right now. Even when they missing Smith going to the minor, a lot of guys are like, we're waiting for him to come back. Even though he wasn't doing that well, it's just the kind of player that Smith is. And having a player like Smith gives you a deep bench, right? Because he's a good defense. He's a great first baseman, and then he plays in the outfield sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't feel like if you add another bat, and just for that purpose, the chemistry on this team can kind of like, it's kind of like adding Yoenis Cespedes. That actually gave him a charge, but then again, the kind of player that he was didn't match the team, and I feel like that didn't help them in the World Series. So.
Yeah, and we'll dive in next week. I think we'll do this because I did want to get into it today, but we'll get into it next week. Some of the needs and possible people they'll be looking at as a trade deadline gets closer, and teams are probably going to make trades sooner than the deadline this year, and maybe some all-star candidates from both teams.
I think Cohen needs to hold on, press the brakes a little bit, and hold on because any bad move right now can just spin the team out of wins.
It's hard when you get this type of role going in chemistry and good fits. It's hard to break that up.
And you're giving guys on the Mets side compared to the Yankee side, you're giving more guys opportunities, and guys feel good about that, and they don't feel like they have pressure to be traded. Where on the Yankee side, everybody's on eggshells. Like one of us might go in a few weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll pick that part of the conversation up next week. It's been a very spirited show today, Carlos. And you know what? I don't disagree with all your comments. You just got this little hairpin turn where you go straight through it without making any attempt to turn. So we'll talk more about Deshaun Watson in the future too. Guys, thank you. Alan, Neil, Ray, Dave, anybody else I missed, I apologize with the comments. Thank you for that, and we'll be back next week to carry these conversations on and more. Don't be afraid to send me topics you guys want to chat about. Carlos, thank you. Have a great weekend. We'll see you later. Tango for TGI Sports Talks. Are You Serious? Right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. Have a great weekend.